here are your latest RTS news, full of new game releases, information on betas or playtests for games in development, as well as showcases of those you might have never heard of before. In addition to all this great news, I will also mention which old classics or new favorites are on sale and where. So while RTS game development used to be the domain of AAA dev teams, most of them and their franchises have been retired by now, because of which we now have indie devs making new RTS games, and some look jaw-droppingly good like Dustfront. This is a brand new trailer showing fresh gameplay mechanics, units, visual effects and more, which I will explain in a special dedicated video and link it up here and down in the description. For now I can tell you that we still don't have a release date, despite this being the 7th year of Dustfront's development. On the other hand, this new trailer showed new units and weapon systems available to the Empire faction, those being the black and red humans using the infantry fighting vehicles, flame tanks as well as hybrid tanks. These new additions include those which use several types of weapon systems at the same time, like the flamethrowers and cannons of the large hybrid tank. The robot faction seems to have received its own hybrid weapon system vehicles, and other units look different from the first trailer as well, while the mutants have new tower-like buildings and more teeth, claws and other appendages. If I compare the old and new gameplay footage, I can also spot differences in some of the resources, even additions to them. Same with the support powers of sorts, which are visible at the right side of the screen and have a certain number of uses. Even the turn-based strategic layer received some changes and updates, just like the new Tech 3. It is a major update of a highly anticipated game, and I can't wait to give you a full overview. But until then, if your jaw isn't on the floor yet, let me help it reach there with this footage of a Halo themed total conversion mod for Homeworld 3 titled Homefleet. It is a spiritual successor to the Operation Homefront mod for Homeworld 2. And these modders turned developers aim to deliver epic space battles reminiscent of the engagement scale featured in the Halo War series, now morphed into impressive and tactical fleet warfare. If you want to join the team, they are looking for new talented and passionate folks who want to work with the modding tools and Homeworld 3's Unreal Engine. I honestly hope this is just the first such project and more good comes out of Homeworld's 3 legacy. This team is working under the name Checkpoint Games, a collaborative development group who you might know for their other work, including Sins of the Prophets, the Halo Total Conversion mod for the original Sins of a Solar Empire, for which they are also working on a sequel, but not in the new Sins 2 gameplay unfortunately. I bet they have plans for mods on that game too, so stay tuned in on my channel for news about such projects in the future. And on the subject of Sins 2 mods, I will show you one amazing such mod in this video just a bit later, while I would love to read in the comments which are your favorite Homeworld and Sins of a Solar Empire total conversion mods. There sure are a lot of them out there. Now, for all you fans of tactical combat on solid ground with modern weapons and vehicles, Broken Arrow is definitely the most hotly anticipated title. I am happy to report on its newest army specialization deck for the US faction, which is called Special Operations Force. This deck is based on speed, stealth and a high level of support, making it best for raids on high-value targets, especially behind enemy lines. In addition to this announcement, developers have allowed content creators one more marketing demo, and this time it included 5v5 multiplayer on a bunch of maps, as well as 2 single-player missions. As a reminder, Broken Arrow is planned to be released in June, with an exact date still pending. My personal view on this game is that it has immense potential in its deck and unit customization options, with over 300 units and hundreds of weapon systems across infantry, vehicles, helicopters and planes, which thousands of players have already tested out and seem to really like. The other reason why I have high hopes for this game's success is developers' commitment to making lots of single-player content as well as co-op missions. In addition to a full campaign on release, all players will have access to the scenario editor and be able to create missions as well as to share them on Steam's workshop. The editor even includes a visual scripting tool allowing the creation of complete scenarios with cutscenes and dialogue. A true next step for amateur game content creation. If you enjoy games like Diplomacy is Not an Option or There Are Billions, I have found a new such survival RTS that you will probably like. Its title is apt considering its design, as in Here Comes the Swarm, you will face massive waves of enemies coming up to your castle walls only to be blown sky high with meteor drops. To be able to manage both settlement building and combat against all these enemies, you'll be able to use the active pause system. To increase your chances of survival against the swarms of enemies stomping your way, you will have the choice of picking a divine deity, which will bless you and give you boosts to attack, defense, or be helpful in some other way. In addition to this, finding arcane essences on each map will unlock more ways to boost and customize your playthrough. Settlement building will involve gathering resources, buying upgrades and expanding with more population that you have to both feed and keep happy. You'll be able to train your own units into an army to man the walls and defend yourself. There are actually many such games, but very few end up being enjoyable and replayable. This next game currently in development that I want to point out to you is Crusader Knights Templars. This one comes from a developer team which has been making such games for a while now, with similar gameplay but varied time periods their games cover. This time they are taking us to the Holy Land for the first Crusades. All their games bring a varied gameplay style with real-time battles and world map modes where you have diplomacy, city building, half a dozen resources, navies, transports, sea invasions, and lots of content in general. If I were mean, I could call it the poor's man Total War, but it wouldn't be fair. As in all such games, you start small as a founding member of the legendary Templars or your own custom Holy Order. From there, your story and adventure unfolds across Europe and all the way to Asia with land and sea battles, sieges, and open-ended gameplay after you go through the main campaign. If you have played any of the previous games from this dev team, let me know down in the comments. When it comes to new releases, which you can already play, I want to tell you about Night is Coming, which is a smaller scale settlement builder and survival RTS, and it is based on Slavic, meaning Eastern Europe mythology. It has a demo on its Steam store page, so even if you don't buy it, you can still try it out and witness the horrors of the deep forest like ghouls, leshy, werewolves, night hags and more. These come at night to tear down your walls and eat your villagers, but if you train them right, equip them and build defenses like walls, gates and towers, you might have a chance to survive one more night. What will help you is upgrading new tech through the spirit energy of your settlement and unlocking some great magic spells to hit those nightmarish creatures with. Once you have some experienced militiamen, you can even venture out, scout the woods and find objects of interest, blessings or extra resources. In the end, it is not just the monsters that will get you, but the bitter cold of a harsh winter too. I can already picture myself failing in this game dozens of times before I make meaningful progress. And on the topic of meaningful progress, the veterans from Frostgiant Studios are continuing with making improvements to one of the most controversial RTS games since the one whose name shall not be spoken on this channel. So Stormgate's campaign is one of the main elements that are going to see improvements and changes in the coming 0.4 version. The devs have already changed how the infernal units look and will also change the look of their buildings. With this and other changes already or soon to be implemented, the game's atmosphere and its single-player content is changing and turning into something more to what the player base always wanted, especially if we judge by the number of comments and posts. The developers of Powerplay RTS have been equally busy adding not just planes, helicopters and airstrikes into their game, but also working on improving the base building and resource distribution system. This is one of the rare RTS games which shows you physically where your resources are and makes you distribute them between buildings using conveyor belts no less. I know its combat still looks a bit clunky, but now the game has turrets, air units, and soon will get naval units, a feature fans of RTS games almost always ask for. The developers told me they are now working on campaign missions and will soon post a new demo on their Steam store page, so we will all have a chance to test play this indie game again. Next new release I want to mention is Armored Brigade 2, which is now available on Steam. This sequel brings full 3D to this franchise, absolutely gigantic maps, authentic and detailed command and control systems, as well as over 1000 ground and air units. It now even includes line of sight mechanics with terrain and landscape blocking units from view. Its setting is the Cold War, like many games with a similar gameplay system you have probably played before, but what it does differently is that orders and information take time to be received and executed, influenced by factors such as training level, chosen doctrine, distance from HQ and communication within unit formations. This can, however, be changed to make it feel faster and easier to control. Armored Brigade 2 has launched with several campaigns, but also with a tool allowing you to make your own. Developers of this one definitely went with gameplay over graphics, and I hope there are those among you that appreciate this approach. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. And one game which you praise often in the comments of my videos is Crown of Greed, mostly because of its gameplay, which makes it a spiritual successor to Majesty. I have played its demos several times over, something I rarely do, and now I can tell you that the developers have chosen 2026 as the target for the full release of this game.
That's not a board.
Their plan is to bring new mechanics and content on release, like a new system that will allow us to spend accumulated points between scenarios to unlock new buildings, technologies, hero skills and more to have a fully custom playthrough. They also want to add a new class of heroes and more enemy types, a day and night system, customization of our royal banner and heroes, even giving us the ability to transfer favorite heroes between scenarios or resurrect them if they fall in battle. Another addition will be a decree system, which they will describe in more detail in future dev vlogs. They promise to make the campaign more robust and mention even some sort of tower defense scenarios. So far, this Majesty spiritual successor looks to be on the right track.
Die, foul beast!
Now here is news on something that will make a lot of people happy, and both those that play and don't play this game right now. NEBULOUS Fleet Command developer posted an entire dev blog dedicated to the progress of the single-player campaign. This is something that we have all been waiting and hoping for, because while the multiplayer and skirmish are great, it is the storytelling mode that has been missing since launch. In the dev blog we can watch new animations like ships docking to space stations and a showcase of a new ship class called the Warden. This is a fleet carrier ship class that will in fact serve as the player's flagship for the campaign. It even has its own backstory, as it was a very old ship that was even decommissioned but returned to service and converted into a new prototype fleet carrier. The campaign in NEBULOUS Fleet Command is planned to be focused on a small task group trying to successfully complete their missions, but only as a small part of a much greater war happening around them. You will be able to see the overview and different solar systems, even using it to order ships to move between systems. This is just an example and prototype, and definitely not a final version. While traveling, you will have opportunities to increase the size of your starting fleet, but also lose ships in different ways. But what is really amazing is that the tools the developer is using to create this campaign will be available to all of us, so we can make our own mods or even entire campaigns.
We all know Age of Empires has amazing campaigns, and there are already a lot of them, but on the 6th of May there is going to be one more for Age of Empires 2 and its definitive edition, which is set in China's epic romance of the Three Kingdoms, and so titled The Three Kingdoms. It will bring 5 new civilizations, each with their own unique units and technologies, the Shu, Wei and Wu, who represent the legendary Three Kingdoms, and 2 more from northern China beyond the Three Kingdoms period. This DLC brings 3 new campaigns as well as heroes such as Liu Bei, Cao Cao and Sun Clan. They are going to be given devastating special hero abilities, while an interactive decision system will allow us to choose our own paths during the campaign. And of course, all of these new factions are going to be available in the skirmish game mode.
We require more materials.
This next game has been out for a very long time and received many updates, but it will now have a dedicated demo which is linked in the description below, so I hope you will try it out and let me know what you think of it. It is titled The Hive, and it features a mix of strategy and RPG elements because you're a commander of an insectoid hive mind and can build underground colonies, harvest resources, and even evolve your swarm using DNA. Despite being underground, you will find ancient ruins, forgotten civilizations, colossal creatures, and leftover equipable items, and then use DNA you find on conquered enemies to unlock advanced units, unique abilities, and new approaches to gameplay. I was personally stunned to only find out about it in 2025. As for totally new games in 2025, I have come across one more whose art style is quite different and might even belong to another game genre, but the Omins is an indie game that has its own fascinating world which fits together beautifully with these aesthetics. Here you already have tribes of humans and orcs, but developers plan to add other factions as well. Your villagers are more than just units, as they have needs which you fill by building them homes to sleep in and finding them food to eat. They in turn can improve their combat, physical and mental skills, becoming more valuable members of your tribe. You can improve their chances of survival further by unlocking new weapons through a research tree and powers for you as their deity. The strategic zoom is just icing on this RTS cake.
On the topic of strategic zoom, 2 grand-scale RTS projects take the cake when it comes to already playable indie projects. These you probably know of by now, 0K and Beyond All Reason. Since I recently posted a new guide explaining the economy in Beyond All Reason, linked up here and down in the description, let me tell you about its latest recall engine update. With this one, a lot of improvements were introduced into the game and bugs squashed. For example, the water looks better and more realistic. Players can rotate the minimap, while the skybox and shading textures track the sun's position. When it comes to gameplay and mechanics, units handle steep slopes and terrain obstacles better, missiles and nukes have improved trajectories, and collision avoidance and pathfinding for certain units has been improved. You will also notice the construction animations are visibly smoother and less memory will be used by the pathfinding system. Another and most recent update to BAR is the realistic dynamic shadow casting, lighting improvements, as well as animated detailed lights added to hundreds of Armada and Cortex unit models. These clips showcase just some of these latest updates and they make the game look even better. Some other visual improvements are new searchlights on units, distortion effects from cloaking, jamming, stealth and more, shockwave effects from explosions, muzzle bursts and foot stomps of heavy units. Even the fusion cores got an improved look. I should also mention that the dev team of BAR has received more contributions from brand new programmers who I personally want to thank for taking the time to work on this free indie gem. And if you didn't know, BAR just had its Alpha Cup tournament with a prize pool of $1,000. The gameplay, witnessed by devs and players alike, led to a nerf to one of its basic units, which is just one way these tournaments help the game improve and grow. Interestingly enough, the dev team behind 0K has also worked on improving the visuals of their grand-scale indie RTS project, which is already on Steam and also free to play. We can see these improvements thanks to the developers sending me fresh footage, as I must admit not having found the time yet to play much of 0K, something I must do and soon. So what they changed is the visuals of all the plasma bullets, adding or changing the trail behind the actual projectile. This is a type of projectile fired by several kinds of units, and even the Disco Rave Party super weapon and artillery, because of their large impact weapons, which make the visual effects more prominent. This update even has a nickname, Snazzy Plasma, which I find hilariously cool. A balancing update followed this visual change, with some units gaining extra health, the mentioned super weapon turning faster, while a few issues were fixed and options added. If you still haven't picked your favorite between these two games, I hope you will try both out a few more times. Before I talk about the sales recommendations, I should mention that you can now get one of the best RTS games ever, at least in my opinion, for free. This is World in Conflict, and please do share your own memories and impressions of its gameplay, in which the Cold War goes hot and the Russians invade both Europe and the USA. The base version of World in Conflict is now available for download on the website I have linked down in the description of this video, where you can find the links to all the other games, sales and mods I talk about. As for World in Conflict, you can even set up multiplayer using the files found on that website, but if you want to also play the Soviet Assault expansion, you still have to buy the game somewhere. Many players say Broken Arrow is a direct continuation of World in Conflict's gameplay, especially in the multiplayer, so now you can check for yourself if you don't already own the game. And on the subject of owning games, if you want to add more to your collections, here is what is on sale right now on Steam, as there is a sale of Microsoft IPs, or as they call it, Steam Xbox Game Studios Publisher Sale, meaning lots of Age of Empires games, starting with the definitive edition of the first sequel and its newest DLC called the Three Kingdoms I talked about earlier in this video. This sale lasts until May 8, and you can also get the third and fourth Age of Empires games at lower prices. In addition to these, Age of Mythology Retold is on sale, a game I play with my kid a lot these days, as this has become his gateway game to the RTS genre. The last two games I want to mention, which are part of this sale, are the amazing Rise of Nations and its extended edition, as well as the very dynamic, if limited in the number of units and bases, Halo Wars and its definitive edition. Another big franchise on sale is Company of Heroes, so across 3 games and a dozen or so DLCs, there is a lot on offer, starting with Company of Heroes 1 and its 2 expansions, which is the cheapest game and has the most amazing mods, some of which I showcased in previous videos. The first sequel does have mods for all kinds of things too, but its DLCs are not as loved due to their focus on expanding factions and not stories. Company of Heroes 3 has a long story of its own, not just in the campaign, but with the players' reception of the game, but most consider it to be much better at this point, while I personally still have a few gripes with it. Of course, it is the most expensive one, and not all of its DLCs are on sale. Since it is the War Games Fest after all, Steam has sales on a number of such games, like WARNO and its World War III scenario, which has a number of free and paid DLCs which extend its already huge unit count. Sudden Strike 4 is a very different game, especially since it's based on the Second World War, but it doesn't lack for playable DLC content, which is all on sale too. Regiments is another Cold War gone hot kind of a war game, but it's quite cheap. Has only a single DLC and even a demo, so you can try it out before you decide if you're interested in buying it. Stronghold's Definitive Edition has a demo as well, and it's also cheap, and as a classical experience as you can get, considering its age, but the visual upgrade of this edition is excellent. Another World War II game on sale is Steel Division 2, also made by Eugene Systems, just like WARNO, meaning lots of units and historical accuracy. For this next game, I have the honor of bringing you totally fresh and even exclusive footage I received directly from developers, and since you all reacted really well when I showed Panzer Strike last time, here is more info and footage of this isometric indie RTS set in World War II. This game has advanced with the addition of new units and mechanics like infantry that can enter buildings and storm them if enemies are inside. They can also ride on top of armored vehicles, for which crews have been implemented, while trucks can transport infantry and tow guns. There is a sort of tech demo of Panzer Strike, but soon a proper demo version for us all to play will be released as developers work on mission scripting and map drawing. These developers want to bring big maps, historically accurate units, and realistic weapon ranges to offer us a deep strategic experience and battles between Germany and the Soviet Union in both single-player and multiplayer with mod support. More new units implemented in this version of the game are self-propelled guns, anti-tank guns, and armored cars. Other new features include dirt, sand, forest, and farmland environments with trees, vegetation, roads, fences, and cliffs to add tactical depth. The visuals also got an upgrade with tracers and different explosions for a variety of weapons. And where are explosions more spectacular than in space RTS games like Sins of a Solar Empire 2? Its developers have published their Season 2 roadmap detailing both free and paid updates planned for the rest of 2025. There are going to be new special planets for each faction, new maps and gravity wells, as well as improved tutorials. In addition to these, we can expect new minor factions based on Advent and Pirates, as well as new Strikecraft mechanics, random events, new victory conditions, and more. The next paid DLC will be the Reinforcement DLC, which is basically a warship pack. The new planet types I mentioned have already been introduced as part of the 1.41 New Worlds update, giving us high population density worlds for each race. Developers have also tweaked and updated the content and scenarios from the first DLC, Paths to Power, with new research subjects added to support colonization for all races as well as new planet items. There are many more balancing and gameplay changes which you can read in the patch notes, but I would like to point out rebalanced Advent credit and resource costs, as well as Vasari Warden and Oppressor in line with the community feedback. Of course, there are other changes, fixes, and updates, but what is important to note is that this game will have an even longer shelf life than the original one. Especially with upcoming mods such as Star Trek Armada 4. I have talked about this project before and now can show you new gameplay clips with many Federation, Cardassian, Klingon, and Dominion ships in fleet-to-fleet combat. These modders have taken particular care to update the shield visuals when a ship is under attack, and I must admit it looks amazing. And on the topic of Star Trek factions and races, do share your favorites in the comments below. The ship models are totally breathtaking on their own, and every time I watch the gameplay of this mod, I feel like watching a Star Trek TV show episode. All the favorites are already available, like the Galaxy, Sovereign, and Defiant class for the Federation. There are many other classes of small and big ships and star bases as well as shipyards. The only gripe I have with the gameplay is how, because of the game this mod is based on, ships tend to clump up and overlap, which is not exactly how Star Trek combat would look like, as ship shields wouldn't allow them to be so close to each other. This creates a particular problem due to most ships using phasers, and as dozens of lines of directed energy start to crisscross a tiny fraction of a planetary gravity well, it doesn't look right. So this is one part of gameplay I hope these modders can change and add some sort of minimal distance between ships in the same fleet. Now let me show you something totally different, and a game which has changed a lot since the last time I showcased it.
At last, Iron Peak Mountains.
This is Darfall, a hero-based game with city building and RPG elements related to those hero characters, with real-time combat against orcs, undead and other monsters. It has a demo on Steam which you can already try out and see if you like this kind of small-scale experience, which includes looting, items, abilities, talents and night raids you have to survive and protect your keep. Developers of Darfall are going with a full launch planned for the 8th of May, bringing a single-player campaign with a full storyline, proper characters and fun and complex gameplay, with a survival mode and potential for making scenarios ourselves. This game is a clear product of love and dedication by a small indie team which found themselves a publisher and have done their best to incorporate high-quality voiceovers.
Archmage Eldrin, Captain Thorn at your service.
In the main campaign, you're given a mage character from the start, while if you play the survival mode, you can choose from a number of different classes of heroes, from a paladin to a dwarf engineer. They all have traits, abilities you can unlock and level up, as well as different weapons and attack types, with an inventory system for items you find from enemies or inside treasure chests. This next news section comes with a time-limited part, as ZeroSpace has a new demo that will be playable during the Steam's War Games Fest and until May 5th. This version of the demo does not give access to any of the campaign, but you can play in the Galactic War Conquest mode, which is probably going to be the game's most interesting mode for most players, as it allows you to play in co-op with other players or the AI and gives small upgrade for your playthrough over many battles of different types. Then there is the Versus mode, with everything from 1v1 PvP to PvE versus 2 bots, with a choice of 3 different factions and several mercenary factions which can be used in matches to augment your chosen faction. The survival mode I have shown you before, and it is playable with 2 players, while you can always set up custom matches and choose your own settings and maps.
Building complete.
Developers have added and changed a lot of the content, including new maps and upgrades to existing ones. The 3 factions, Legion, Grell and Protectorate, have been changed to find their best balance and iron out both micro and macro gameplay, which keeps them both unique but able to compete with each other. You can read the specifics, but I hope you will also experience them for yourself in the new demo.
Understood. Here goes. HQ destroyed.
Another demo which went live during the Steam's Wargame Fest is one of Strategos. This is the indie-made real-time tactics wargame set in the Classic Age, which boasts over 120 factions and 250 different units from the ancient world. These devs found a publisher and have moved from a gameplay teaser to a working demo quite fast. This playable version can be downloaded on their Steam page and lets you experience custom battles on 2 maps, use default army size settings with 3 of the game's factions: Plebeian Roman, Late Carthaginian and Pyrrhic. Each of these showcases very different units and employs unique tactics in battles due to their specialist weapons and formations. Do note that while the battles remind of Total War, the rest of the game does not, so don't get caught up in the Total War killer spin you might find online. Give it a go and see for yourself what kind of gameplay you can expect in the full game. If you do, make sure to share your thoughts and impressions in the comments below and wishlist the game. As you know, I like to point out some very different takes on the RTS genre by indie developers, so here is Conquest of Eldinar, a game that has changed in a number of ways since I talked about it last year, and it is now a 2.5D action RTS with 16 fantasy factions, base building, army recruitment and battles in both single player and multiplayer. Its world is populated by humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, dragonkin and many more races with unique cultures, aesthetics, lore and most importantly, deadly weapons and spells, which you can use yourself in battles, as the game features a direct unit control system. Meaning you can select any unit on the battlefield to take full player control, blocking with your shields, striking enemies with swords or targeting them with arrows. The world is huge and a big free-for-all war between all the 16 factions, so I hope you will wishlist it and wait for a demo or its full release in 2026.
Now, a game that already has a demo available on its Steam store page is EVERGLORY, and it has some of the strangest units I have ever seen, even if the graphics are old school. Because in this base building and army combat solo indie devs love letter to the RTS classics, you have entire buildings acting as units as they walk on 2 chicken-like legs, 4 hooves, or 6 spider-like legs. I know, I was as stunned as you are now when I first saw this, so it took me a while to notice the nomadic orcs, medieval Slavs, and Teutonic knights among the units. This game features formations, as you will need them in battles which support 1,000 units. The economy part of this game is not exactly simple, due to resources being stored in local storages and used directly from those. Your base building has to take into consideration these supply chains and transport routes on maps, which can be enormous, but are also meticulously crafted and full of diverse quests, mysterious secrets, custom mechanics, and scripted interactions. Another atypical game is D.O.T. Defense, since it is a tower defense game which also has armies and map conquest mechanics. It offers 1v1, 2v2 and free-for-all battles in single player and multiplayer, and has an early access release date set for the 15th of April on Steam. I mentioned it a while back, but the developers have been busy preparing its content for launch, making sure their AI commanders have several difficulty levels and are able to use both good tactics and unique powers against you in skirmish. D.O.T. Defense isn't a complex game, so its economy system is simplified and the battles are somewhat automated, but there is an interesting update system to use as well as a variety of turrets, making matches last about 10 minutes. Your main objectives in these are to protect your own HQ building while destroying the enemy's one. There is also a wave defense mode in which you expand your territory, gain supplies to upgrade individual regions, and strategically place turrets to protect your HQ. A game that is already out and has received almost 20 updates by now is Welcome Back Commander, which despite its name isn't exactly what you might expect, as its roguelike squad-based real-time tactical combat in a Lovecraftian/military themed world is filled with horrors of all sorts. Some of these have been given upgrades or balance updates in these patches to make them more or less effective against your simple humans in armor. The developers behind the game decided not to add new content as DLCs, but as free updates, and instead to let players choose to support them with an art book that can be purchased separately. I noticed more than a few of my viewers are interested in this game, so I felt like I should let them know just how much work the developers still put into this game post-launch. The last game for this RTS news video is one I only teased before, but now have its newest Unreal Engine 5 based gameplay to show to you, thanks to the developers who shared it with me and you as my viewers. This is Timefront, and its setting is high fantasy, while its features are planned to include a storytelling roguelike campaign, multiplayer with deck building mechanics, co-op challenges, custom games, and a game editor. Developers want to have 5 asymmetric races, commanders and a progression system for them, unit recruitment, different types of attacks and armor, artifacts as items, and to make the game free to play. This is very early gameplay I'm showing here, and the developers would love to hear your feedback on their Discord server because they have closed playtests already available. With the RTS genre picking up steam once again, I have many more updates for you, and each time I make these videos, even more new games show up on my radar. Do let me know which ones you are looking forward to the most, and I will try to get the newest info and footage from the developers. Thank you for watching, and happy gaming!